Alright, man, peace. So as you brothers could see on the screen, there's an older sister, still attractive even at that point in her life. Her name is Shahrazad Ali, and many of you brothers may be familiar with her. She wrote a very powerful book almost 30 years ago, about 28 years ago, called The Black Man's Guide to the Black Woman. Was very, very controversial at the time because basically as a black female, she recognized that even back then, by 1989, the so-called black man and black woman were in the midst of a gender war, which had basically started in the mid-70s and by the late 80s was in full swing. She recognized the reasons behind it, and she decided to write a book to arm the so-called black man because she recognized, like I do, that you have to aim your messages at the so-called black man because he's supposed to be the head. Now, I'm pretty sure that she got assistance in writing her book from certain men in the Nation of Islam, most likely her husband. But the sister also has a good deal of wisdom. Why is that? Because she acknowledged what her role is. Once the so-called black woman acknowledges what her role is, then she's going to be gifted with wisdom. And a lot of the stress that she brings upon herself by accepting the feminist ideologies will be alleviated. You'll no longer have to take all these antidepressant drugs and all this random dick and all this wine like Gabrielle Union talks about. You won't need to do that anymore because, you know, at this point now, you'll understand your role. There'll be less pressure. All right. But anyway, let's see what she has to say. She basically did a speaking engagement in which she listed the 7 attributes of a quote unquote good black woman. So let's see what she has to say.
As I said, this book demonstrates that we are not as different as we like to think that we are. So what I'm going to go over real brief right now is what the attributes are of the good black woman. Since she's not on television, we may not recognize her.
Yeah, well, hold up. Let me get my pencil and my damn loose leaf so I can write this shit down.
Okay. Now, the good black woman has 7 attributes, and then I'm going to explain to you how to utilize those in your day-to-day life. The good black woman has self-discipline, courteousness, cheerfulness, self-respect, intelligence, cleanliness, and love.
Does that woman also live on Saturn? Because, shit, she damn sure ain't here on Earth. That's for goddamn sure. Anyway, let me let you continue. Go ahead.
We've heard that terminology. You know, it's like one of those where they tell you pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. What do that mean? You know, how can I make that functional in my day-to-day life to benefit me as a practice? It sounds like all theory. Where's the practical? What do I do? The good black woman has self-discipline. That's self-control. Let me make that real for you, sisters. We can start with our mouth.
I like the sound of that, but as we all know, the main reason why the quote-unquote good black woman or the black woman has no control over her mouth is because she's encouraged to run her mouth. She's encouraged to be rebellious. Please keep in mind, once again, this book was originally written by Shahrazad Ali, or attributed to her as the author, almost 30 years ago. So we know that we're 30 years along. The black woman is no longer just encouraged to be loud and odious. She's also encouraged to be a pansexual. So things have been stepped up to a whole other level that the so-called black man has to deal with. And now we're going into about the 40-year mark where it's customary for the black woman to be raising the child by herself. Okay? So that's the condition of the battle. But yes, it's very, very difficult for a woman to have self-discipline if she's not told that she's wrong in the first place. For the most part, discipline comes from an understanding of right and wrong. It's hard for somebody to say, well, I shouldn't be speaking when she's been told her whole life that it's a good thing for her to run her mouth.
The good black woman can control her mouth. She don't have to say everything that comes up. It's okay if he get the last word sometime.
Well, look, let me say this. For brothers who are in relationships with females that don't let you get the last word, that's a good thing. because that means that she's telling you right there, hopefully, that you have not had a child with her yet. If you're in a relationship with somebody, and a quote-unquote relationship, and she always feels as if she has to get the last word, then that is notification for you that she's not wife material. She's just a concubine. All right? That's all she is a concubine. So don't take her seriously. Do not try to engage her in any serious conversation, because she's another liberal woman just looking to get into debates all the time. And really not debates, really just arguments, because in debates, both parties have to have facts.
In public. And she works on not cussing in private. She don't tear a man down with her mouth, because they can't out-argue us. Can't nobody out-argue us.
Hey, that's why I tell people all the time, brothers should not be going back and forth with these women, man. Once you see that the woman is argumentative that you're dealing with, it's time for you to develop your exit strategy. Okay? It's time for you to figure out your exit strategy. Do not try to fight fire with fire. The argumentative woman is trying to manifest her resentment towards men for whatever reason. Maybe her father wasn't around. Maybe she was molested as a child. Maybe she was raped. Either way, all of that eruption, that's a manifestation of her rage and her anger. Start developing your exit plan as soon as possible. All right?
Our men too much. We keep our men's head tied up so much with our petty grievances about our personal relationship that he don't have time to think and plan for our future, because he got to deal with what's going to happen with us every day. You know, it's real odd when the black man come home, he almost have to do a wind test or stick his toe in the door. He don't know what's waiting. He don't know who in there today. You know, it's a possibility that there's some kind of new monster that he didn't even know about yesterday.
Now, when you hear this sister speaking, you can see why it was so controversial when her book first came out, because she was viewed by many black females at the time as a whistleblower. She was viewed as somebody who was defecting over to the side of the black man, because even at that point, most of the black women were liberal, and they had embraced the man versus woman belief system, the man versus woman ideology. So believe me, even though the people in her audience here are laughing, she made appearances on numerous talk shows, and she was roundly attacked. Okay, not just by the host, but also by many of the people in the audience.
You know, we need to not make it like that. We need to not be so vicious with our mouth. You know, men are not petty like that. They're not going to out-argue us. And it has been proven that verbal abuse is just as harmful as physical abuse.
Well, I would say that it's up there, and it's just as harmful in a different way. But like she said, most men are not going to go back and forth with women. A lot of men do go back and forth with women now because they've been rendered mentally impotent because they're being raised by women. So all they've seen for most of their life is the back and forth and the volleying of negative energy. But if you're a man and your thought process works according to a certain way, you already know that a woman's not worth arguing with. That's like arguing with a child. All right? She throws her tantrum. She has to have the ability to end her tantrum quickly. If she lets that shit carry on, no problem. Have a nice life. Goodbye.
So let's not use our mouth to do that to him. The good black woman is courteous. She says, "Thank you, baby. I appreciate you doing that. I appreciate every effort you make. Try harder. I'm going to work with you. Thank you. I know you did your best." Now that's a whole new language.
Yeah, it is a whole new language. It is a whole new language. But, you know, in all seriousness, you know, these are all things. This is why I'm running this video, because these are a lot of the things that, especially a lot of brothers who might not have much experience dealing with women, these are things that you should be looking for from the woman. And these are characteristics that oftentimes the woman will try to exhibit early on in the relationship, the quote-unquote relationship, because she's showing you a certain face. But You know, that's why I state that the woman is on lifetime probation. You always have to be wary of the female, of the woman, and her possible changes. Is she having a change because she's in a bad mood, or is she having a change because she's tired of acting? You know, these are things that you have to determine.
But just to say that during the course of the day, every day, with the man that you're trying to be with or want to be with, will make our life easier. We can't get it if we don't give it. We keep wanting them to give us and do something for us that we refuse to do and give to them. It don't work like that. The good black woman has self-respect. She don't have to go out naked just to get the attention of a man.
Well, shit. That should have been number one. That shit right there that she just said, that should have been number one. Because I state that ad infinitum. But look, man, I say this all the time. All this nonsense that these women talk about with men sexualizing women, that is a facade. The woman loves to sexualize herself. That's why you'll see them say asinine things. I dress like this for me. I don't dress like this to get men's attention. I dress like this for me. No, you dress like that because you have low self-esteem. You define yourself by your body. You want to weaponize your body. To be quite honest with you, the attire of most of these women should be classified as sexual harassment. Because for a female to proactively and consciously get dressed in a way to show off her breasts and her ass is a way to sexually harass men. To say, look, I'm dressing like this, but you have no right to look at me. You have no right to stare. You have no right to approach me. That's like you putting out dog food for the dog and getting mad at it for approaching the food. Okay? That is a form of harassment. And there's also a manifestation and an expression of the woman's need to try to utilize the power of her quote-unquote sexuality, which is really based on the mother goddess, the whore of Babylon, Venus or Ishtar, Aphrodite, whatever you want to call her, in an attempt to cultivate male veneration. That's why I say that the best way to counter that is to ignore them.
Up to me after the lectures, and they'll be talking to me, and they'll say, well, you know, all he think about is sex. All he think about is my body. I say, why don't you show him something else? And then here's the really good one.
Let me say this before she continue. For the woman to say, well, all he think about is sex, I mean, look, it's no disrespect. Most men are not going to be with you for your brain. I'm just going to be honest with you. Now, if you have a great brain, that's a great
a weave, they have on false eyelashes, another whole face, false fingernails, and all of that, and then they'll say, but I'm looking for a real man.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Once again, as you brothers could see, this is why this woman's book was very, very controversial at the time when it came out, because she was saying things that that most women did not want to hear from another woman, because if they heard it just from another man, they could brush it off. Okay, and I mentioned this before. These women, they use all that fake apparel, the the makeup and the eyelashes, and also the back then it was the weaves, but now it's just wigs. Now you have young women wearing wigs. The push-up bras and the Spanx and the butt pads and all these other things, the high heels. All these things are meant to hide their insecurities and their self-hatred. And yet they'll try to blame men for objectifying them when their entire clothing, their entire style of dress wear is based off of, number one, sexualizing and objectifying themselves, and number two, trying to take attention away from how much they hate themselves.
Because she has so many other good attributes about herself to get the attention of a man.
And I mean, look, this is not even just the black woman. This could be any woman. All right? For some of you brothers out there who feel like you don't want to deal with the black woman no more, but just any woman. Because as I've stated numerous times, this is not really just a liberal black woman issue. This is a liberal woman issue. It's just that the liberal black woman is prone to being the most, to having the most extensive amount of issues because they're within the weakest framework of a community. Meaning what? They don't have men who are going to tell them that what they're doing is wrong and tell them why and have a consistent code throughout the whole community. The woman knows, the black woman knows that even if she does come across a man who's going to try to check her, she can move on to the next man. And it's going to be a whole different set of rules and regulations.
We can take the sisters in a position to take all of the charge and sexual energy out of the black community by just dressing differently. We have the power.
Simple as that. And as soon as a woman dresses differently, she'll notice that she's perceived differently. Right? The woman will always say that she wants to be valued for her intellect and for her personality. But as the sister here says, she's leading with her ass and her titties. So how else is a man going to look at them? And once again, I don't make any commentary directed at the woman. Everything that I state is directed towards the man. Right? Because it's up to the man to view society and evaluate it and say, this is what I'm going to tolerate and this is what I'm not going to tolerate. Once the woman sees that you're not going to tolerate certain things, that's the only way that she's going to change. She's not going to change from a man's advice. The woman does not trust the man's information for the most part. For the most part. Now, of course, you have exceptions to every rule.
Control over that. That don't stop you from being beautiful. That don't stop you from getting a man. And it certainly puts things on the right perspective so some other judgments can be made other than physical. It don't take no knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to have a sexual reaction. That's the most base. We spend less time doing that than anything else we do.
Let me also say quickly, one of the main reasons why most of these liberal women don't want anything to do with the spiritual aspect is because they don't want a man to be the one that is lifting them up spiritually. They believe that they can usurp the role of the man and they can deal with the Most High directly. This is why you'll hear many of these women, particularly many of these black women who go to church, they'll claim that God is their husband or Christ is their husband. What is that their way of saying? You're not good enough to be my husband. I'm dealing directly with the Most High. There's no scripture that tells you that the Most High or Christ are the husband to any of these women. All right? The Most High is a spiritual entity. He doesn't have sex. Christ never had sex when he was on the earth. Okay? He was an ascetic. He wasn't dealing with women. So, no, Christ is not your husband. You're not worthy to be Christ's husband. Okay? So, that is just a way for the woman to try to once again usurp any form of propriety in how to deal with the man. The man is the priest. The woman is not a priest. Now, in the ancient world, during the time of prophecy, you have females who were prophetesses. But we're not in the time of prophecy anymore. So there are not any prophets. There are not any prophets or prophetesses out here right now. And anybody who claims to be is deluding themselves. But just to get back to the point, that's the main reason why the woman is scared to wear a long dress, because that represents order and that represents respect for the man, and they don't want to have to respect the man.
We do. So, that doesn't always have to be the forefront issue. We know we are capable of that. The good black woman has intelligence, meaning that she knows how to behave properly in the streets. She's not in the wrong place. Some of our women don't know what else to do other than go to the bar. They need some activities.
Let me say this also quickly. Oftentimes you'll see, and I remember, back when I worked in corporate America, I state this a lot. A lot of times the black woman in corporate America will try to engage you in these conversations that are not work related, to try to bait you into an argument, oftentimes because they don't have a man at home and they need that masculine energy, that back and forth with a man. So she'll try to establish that rapport with men at work. And I remember one black female tried to initiate a conversation with other people in the group about a woman who was out at 3 o'clock in the morning and who was dressed scantily clad, and she got raped. And somebody who decided that they were going to engage her in a conversation said, yeah, well, you know, she probably should not have been out at that time. And of course, the liberal woman, she became incensed, and she said, well, that's no excuse for a woman getting raped. And they tried to involve me in the conversation, and I stated, no, thank you. I do not engage random women in serious conversation. Why is that? Because it's fruitless. A man or a child understands that there are repercussions for their actions. What do you tell a child? You tell a child, don't talk to strangers. You know why? Because that can be the gateway to a child getting kidnapped or molestation. God forbid, if a child was to get picked up and thrown over a grown man's shoulder and people were to catch him and stop that man, they'd ask the child, what happened? If the child said, well, I was talking to that man, what's the first thing that people are going to tell that child? Don't you know not to talk to strangers? What is that a circuitous way of trying to communicate that you were partially at fault? Even to a child, even a child is held more accountable for their actions than the woman is. If a grown man was out in the street at 2:30 in the morning and he walked down a dark alleyway, he got robbed. When he reports it to the cops, what are the cops going to ask him? They're going to say, sir, why did you walk down that dark alley for? Right? Because it's understood that your actions can precipitate what happens to you. Of course, it doesn't make it right if a crime is committed on you because of a decision, but still your decisions are going to precipitate what occurs in your life. The woman actually believes, the modern day liberal woman actually believes that she should be able to, number one, dress however she want, go wherever she want, at whatever time she want, and she should never be held accountable for her bad decisions. Yes, if you're out in the street at 3 o'clock in the morning dressed like a hoe, you're going to encounter men who are unseemly, who may try to take your vagina. I mean, it is what it is. That's why I don't engage people in conversations like that. I'm a firm believer that if a woman doesn't understand those basic things at 25, 30 years old, it's not my job to teach you. Your parents should have taught you that. Right? Your parents or your man have to teach you that. That's not my problem. I'm not going to be here arguing with a broad that I ain't getting no pussy from. Simple as that.
A lot of women thinking that staying home on the weekend is some kind of sin. Some of our women think that if they don't have a new outfit to wear every day, that they go self-destruct. You know, we have a lot of that kind of nonsense going. Every time we buy new outfits and clothes or whatever, all we're doing is sending money out of our community. We don't own no clothing stores. If the white man closed the shoe factory, we'd all be here barefooted tonight.
Well, that also goes back to the fact that, you know, at one time people knew how to make their own clothes. Now people don't know how to make their own clothes, and they don't know how to grow their own food. That's part of the incremental agenda to make people totally dependent on the government. Okay. At one time, if people were sick, they knew how to go out into the field and pick a certain plant or flower that could heal them. Now you have to go to a doctor and get some type of opioid prescription. And then they want to act like they care that people are addicted to opioids. Well, how could you try to claim that you care that people are addicted to opioids when you don't allow them to have the knowledge that it would take to heal themselves, because opioids are a multi-billion-dollar business. Right? So it's the same thing with clothing. Yes, so-called black people spend a lot of money on clothes, but it's because most of them have no idea how to make their own clothes, and they don't know how to make their own shoes. Right? That's what happens when you become urbanized. They tell our people that we're urban. They want us to believe that we're urbanized, meaning that we're city folk. So-called black people that, you know, in their essential nature are akin with nature. But that has been totally taken away because of the generation upon generation of being quote unquote urbanized. All right.
We don't own no shoe factories. You know, very base things that we don't own, that we put our money into and demand we have to have them.
And let me say this also. Most of the original cities were built by so-called black people, so it's not a bad thing to be a city dweller. But my point is that so-called black people now, and really most people in general, they have no idea how to get what they need from nature, what you need to heal yourself and clothe yourself and feed yourself. Most people don't know how to do that anymore.
Sometimes our men look at us and know that he ain't never going to be able to make enough money to give us all of the things we say we want. And don't no man want to be with no woman who he constantly got to deny her the things that she says she wants. That represents failure to him, to have to always, not be able to provide us with what we ask for. One of the ways we can do that is to start being satisfied with less. The good.
Let me also say this. The sister makes a lot of valid points, but also it's incumbent upon the man to recognize when you're with a woman who intends to dig deep into your pockets. All right? If you're with a female who's trying to dig deep into your pockets, then it's up to you to get rid of her. Or if you have the money to subsidize her wants, like a Floyd Mayweather, then it is what it is.
Black woman is clean. Now that's a hard one. The good black woman try to keep the house clean. Good black woman is clean by her own body. A lot of those things we kind of take for granted, but all of our people don't know about that. There are people who are angry with me because I even described the fact that some of us as sisters don't have the proper personal hygiene, as if that don't exist.
Oh, please speak on that. Because goddamn. Whew. Some of these women, damn, they spread their legs. You feel like you drove past a damn dumpster. You're like, what the hell is that? Is that a vagina or am I out in the ocean? Feel like you at Red Lobster. You look between his broad legs. You got crabs, shrimps, clams, mussels. The hell is going on? Damn vagina smell like a red snapper.
We have too much falsehood and pretense going about our condition. Everybody that's dressed up ain't clean. That's just the truth. We have to look at our condition in the light of truth. Stop reacting emotionally and pretending that just because we don't want to deal. One of the most difficult things that I deal with out here is trying to teach our people the difference between an actual fact and an opinion. Our people think that they can accept or reject truth based on how they feel about it.
Well, that is an issue still with the so-called black community today. That's a major issue with the so-called black community today. You have a lot of, especially with the pro-black, they feel like because they don't like the Bible that they therefore can nullify the Bible. You can never nullify something just because you don't like it. Okay? Here's what we do know. We know that none of the pro-black rhetoric, none of the Afrocentrism has helped so-called black people in the least. And the falsehood behind Afrocentrism is that most Afrocentric blacks refuse to move back to Africa. And I tell the pro-blacks this all the time. If you so pro-black, hit that plane back to Africa. You hate Trump so much, hit that plane back to Africa. None of you guys really hate Trump, the pro-blacks who claim to hate him so much. You know how I know that? Because y'all ain't leaving. People who lived in Cuba under Castro, they hated it, so they left. Y'all ain't leaving America. Y'all just want to sit here and bitch and complain. That's how I know that most of you just want a hug from the white man. That's really all it's about.
Your feelings don't change the truth. The truth is just don't be there. You can feel any kind of way you want to feel about it. Those kind of emotions have kept us from growing. Because anything we don't like, we just reject that and say, well, I don't believe that. That don't mean that this
absolutely
not the truth. It just makes you a disbeliever. The good black woman practices non-possessive loving. Now, y'all know that's a hard one.
And hey, I see where she's going with this. And this is a very controversial topic amongst so-called black people. Especially a lot of simp black men, black males, I should say. And, of course, the liberal black woman. But I see where she's going with it. Okay? When she says non-possessive loving.
Now, envy is wanting what someone else has. And jealousy, of course, is just selfishness.
Let me take it back about 30 seconds just to get what she's saying in context.
Emotionally and pretending that just because we don't want to deal. One of the most difficult things that I deal with out here is trying to teach our people the difference between an actual fact and an opinion. Our people think that they can accept or reject truth based on how they feel about it. Your feelings don't change the truth. The truth is just don't be there. You can feel any kind of way you want to feel about it.
Now, please notice that she gave her soliloquy on the truth, and how omnipotent it is and how irrelevant it is that somebody rejects the truth. And she goes from there and she transitions into non-possessive loving. Why did she do that for? Because she knows that most people don't like to hear this truth about quote unquote non-possessive loving. She knows that most so-called black women are going to reject this. And this goes back to the video that I made about the she gotta have it phenomenon with Spike Lee. Most of these women, the reason why they reject a man having multiple women is because they want to have multiple partners themselves. All right? They want to be men.
Those kind of emotions have kept us from growing, because anything we don't like, we just reject that and say, well, I don't believe that. That don't mean that it's not the truth. It just makes you a disbeliever. The good black woman practices non-possessive loving. Now, y'all know that's a hard one. Now, envy is wanting what someone else has. And jealousy, of course, is just selfishness. Non-possessive loving is not an easy one for us to practice. And, of course, I have a lot of sisters and some brothers who are in disagreement with me saying that.
Yes, of course, because the so-called black man has become a simp. All right? Many so-called black men out here, because they've been raised by single mothers, they have rejected order. They become agents of chaos themselves. So it's not so much that they don't really want to deal with multiple women. Number one, most of them don't have the mental faculties to even have one woman, much less multiple women. But they'll have multiple whores. Right? Meaning a lot of these guys, what you'll notice about the simp, and I say this all the time, if you really pay attention to the simp, most simps don't even have a woman. What they do is they try to become the side dude to multiple women, because they don't have the mental faculties to actually lead a woman anywhere. So they have to always try to kiss a woman's ass and, you know, adhere to the worship of the feminine principle. A lot like the character of Mars Blackman, and She's Gotta Have It. Okay, the character of Mars Blackman was the simp archetype. When I say the simp archetype, he was the woman worshiper who really couldn't have his own woman, so he wanted to play the side dude to multiple women. And that's the simp phenomenon. Most of the males who come against the premise that a man can have more than one woman, that's the psychosis that they're dealing with. And of course, the woman, I've already went into that. The woman don't want a man to have multiple women. Why is that? Because that means that she has to make sure that her conduct is in order, or he'll just move along to the next woman. See, when a woman knows that all you have is her, she pretty much knows that you're at her mercy. She knows that you have to put up with her bullshit, especially if you've been trained properly. If a man has been trained to worship women properly, he pretty much is going to put up with whatever the woman does, no matter how much she disrespects him. Now, the concept of a man having multiple women, now that relegates the woman into an entity that is replaceable. And the woman cannot take that mentally. Okay? Because that goes contrary to her essential nature, and that is to be a proponent of chaos. Now, not only can she not be a proponent of chaos, now she has to really accentuate order, or she's going to be put to the back of the line.
But the actual fact is that our men are outnumbered about 5-1. And nature is going to require that the men take responsibility for more than one woman and her children. Most of our men have children by more than one woman anyway. So I don't know why that was such a surprise, allegedly, when I said that.
Well, the reason why it was such a surprise is you already touched on it. Most people don't want to hear the truth. All right. And I've touched on this numerous times. The woman already knows that most of the time that her man has another woman. She just don't want to know about it. All right. That's an affront to her ego. Like in the video on Muhammad Ali that I did, Ali's second wife, Belinda Ali, would actually set up Ali to have sex with different women. She didn't mind it, as long as her station as Ali's wife was never threatened. Now, when Ali went to Manila and he told Ferdinand Marcos that the female that he was traveling with, Veronica Porsche, was his wife, that is when Belinda Ali went into a rage. Because she said it's one thing for you to just get your nut off with these various women. Why? Because Belinda Ali was most likely getting her little thing going on the side herself when Ali was out of town. All right? She didn't mind that, but she did like the prestige of being considered Muhammad Ali's wife. And that's what really made her spaz out, was when Ali called the other woman his wife. Remember, brothers, the woman will always embrace chaos. She cannot stand order, even if there's no change in the convention. Right? The woman just wants, no, she's all about status.
The black man has not been waiting on me to tell him he could have more than one woman. You know, I'm in agreement with the rest of y'all. I don't think he should do that, but I feel like you did.
You see that? You see what she admitted? She admitted that even in her heart of hearts, even though she's talking all this stuff, even in her heart of hearts, she does not want her man to have more than one woman. That's why I said that she most likely is just a mouthpiece for somebody else who guided her to write that book. But the sister is on point with a lot of things that she's bringing out. But she more likely than not is just a front for most likely her husband who wrote the book and trained her up properly to go out there and represent a lot of those tenets that were in the book.
There are some things perhaps about the nature of our man that we have been given some definitions about that are not true. There are some things he can do that we call him a dog. We do not have the same capabilities as a man. I am not talking about fornication and adultery. That's something else. I'm talking about...
And before the sister goes on, let me also say this, because there's a lot of confusion about what fornication and adultery are. Fornication is unnatural sexual acts. Okay? People in this society have been taught that fornication is quote unquote sex before marriage. Fornication is when you engage in unnatural sexual acts, meaning what? Homosexuality, lesbianism, bestiality, incest, pedophilia. Okay, that is what fornication is. I'll probably do a video on that in a Bible topic. And adultery is when a man sleeps with another man's woman, or if a woman sleeps with a man other than her husband. Okay, but if a man was to sleep with another woman who does not herself have a man already, there's nothing wrong with that. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as he is dealing with that woman on some type of level. But there's nothing wrong with a man sleeping with another woman. He could have his main woman. He could have a concubine. He could have more than one wife. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's all throughout the scriptures. But I'll probably do a video on that at a later date. But most of you brothers who have actually read the Bible, you already know that. You know, a lot of these brothers out here don't know anything. And that's the main problem. The so-called black man has never been taught anything. The things that he's been taught were by his mother, the school, or the television. He don't know shit, and that's why he's always ending up making bad decisions and going to prison.
Actual responsibility of fatherhood and husbandhood of another family. That's quite different from fornication and adultery. We don't have the same capabilities of them. That's right. A man can have two homes, 2 sets of in-laws. He can eat dinner at 2 houses, 2 sets of children, 2 garages, 2 separate sets of friends attached.
But let me also say this, and I say this every time I mention this topic. Just because you can have more than one woman does not necessarily mean that you should. A lot of brothers are not mentally capable of having more than one woman. A lot of brothers ain't really mentally capable of having one woman. Okay? And also remember, for every woman that you have, that's a headache. Unless the Lord just bless you with a woman who's about peace. Every woman that you have is a headache. So you have one woman, you have one headache. You got 2 women, you got 2 headaches. All right, you have one main woman, you got a concubine. That's a side headache. That's what that is. All right? So you have to be mentally able to deal with all that.
To that woman, he can have all of that. We can't do that. We can't cook dinner at 2 houses. We can't sleep with one man 4 nights a week and another one 3. Ain't no.
Well, let me say this. She said we can't cook dinner at 2 houses. Most of these bros can't cook dinner at 1 house. All right? Most of these bros can't boil water. And she said that we can't sleep at one man's house, or sleep with one man for 4 days, the other man for 3 days. I don't know about all that. A lot of these women got men on the schedule. like they working at a damn like they working at a damn car plant or car factory. They say you come in on Sunday, you come in on Monday, you come in on Tuesday.
Ain't gonna agree with that. We can't have one set of children we leave in one place and go and stay in another place and take care of another set. It doesn't work for us. Now that does not mean that we can't have sex with more than one man. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just taking responsibility for your children. Now certainly every man can't take financial responsibility for all of his children. He can do something. But a man who is spending...
let me say this quickly. That goes back to what I stated about responsibility. Please understand that even if you just have one woman, you have to seriously scrutinize that woman before you have a child with her, much less having children with multiple women. Okay? You have to be with a woman for years before you even consider having a child with that woman. And you must have gone through adverse situations with that woman and been able to determine if she's somebody who can deal with adversity. Very, very, very important, much less having a family with multiple women. See, in this society is so chaotic and frenetic, and it's so much about entropy that it's very, very difficult for the woman to conceive in her mind that her man can have more than one woman. Very difficult. They have to be raised that way. And that's why you'll notice in many other cultures that the people seem to be more at peace, because they're raised from their youth upward to embrace a certain culture. Culture has conventions, it has codes, and it has ordinances. These are all things that so-called black people don't have. That's why it's laughable to me that so-called black people get upset when I say that black people don't have a culture. All right? They don't. You can get mad about that if you want. It's okay.
Time with a child is going to do something for it. Because then they'll find out what we have since we've been taking care of them.
Let me rewind this back a little bit to get what she's saying in proper context.
He can eat dinner at 2 houses, 2 sets of children, 2 garages, 2 separate sets of friends attached to that woman. He can have all of that. We can't do that. We can't cook dinner at 2 houses. We can't sleep with one man 4 nights a week and another one 3. Ain't no man gonna agree with that. We can't have one set of children we leave in one place and go and stay in another place and take care of another set. It doesn't work for us.
Let me say this also quickly. When she said that we can't be with one man for 4 days and another man for 3 days, that's kind of the sentiment of she gotta have it. That you have 3 men who know about each other and they're all vying for the attention of one woman. That's how you know that shit is it's not realistic. No real man is going to be sharing no damn woman, knowing that other men are trying to vie for this woman in a serious way. Okay, that's how you know that the true intention, the true impetus behind that film was to promote the whore of Babylon or the mother goddess archetype. That's all it was. Because Spike Lee is smart enough to know that real men ain't gonna do that. They might share a hoe. Most men are out here sharing hoes, but you're not gonna share no woman in a serious way. Come on.
Now that does not mean that we can't have sex with more than one man. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just taking responsibility for your children. Now certainly every man can't take financial responsibility for all of his children. He can do something. But a man who is spending time with a child is going to do something for it. Because then they'll find out what we have since we've been taking care of them by ourselves. You don't like to always say, no, I can't do it. No, I ain't got it. So the children will make you get it up. You spend some time with it. You know, that's an important thing. The effectiveness of the principles that I just described, their usefulness has not diminished just because modern opinion has changed about them.
Exactly. And that's why the scriptures tell you, I believe it's Jeremiah, the sixth chapter. I believe it's around the 16th verse. It tells you, seek ye the old paths. All right. Seek ye the old paths. Those are the ways, the ways that have worked since antiquity. There's a reason why those methods have been around for thousands of years. Now, all of a sudden, people are talking about how a child should be raised by 2 mothers or 2 fathers. You have to have both that energy, but it has to be functional. It has to be a functional relationship. You know, you just can't have a man and a woman in a home just for the sake of having that. They have to be functional. And you can only have functionality in a strong culture. It's not that difficult to figure out, brothers.
There is not a black man in this room who does not still enjoy it if his woman bake him a cake. Well, our young daughters are being raised and taught that that's old style and that's out of fashion. We are not making those rules. Somebody else is, and they're imposing them on us and making...
Yes. What she's addressing is a sentiment that I touch on frequently, which is the Caucasian liberal and how they're imposing their thought processes on so-called black people, particularly so-called black women. It's been going on since the 50s, all right? And it's incrementally built up momentum until today, where basically most of these male and females only get together to have sex, and then they depart after about 2 or 3 months. All right, that's the average relationship, quote unquote, in America. About a 2 or 3 month tryst where people go out to eat a few times and, they bust a few nuts and then they go their separate ways. Why is that? Because neither party is raised with a gender specific identity.
I think that we have to qualify under them. I tell the brothers, just like I tell the sisters, if you have a woman that you've been working with for months or years, and you can't get that woman to get in agreement with your program, then get rid of her and get another one.
Thank you. Look, this shit ain't that hard, brothers. It's really not. Or let me specify, it's not that complex. Now, if you've been with a broad for years and years, now the spirit of that woman might be on you. It might be hard to cut her off. But you know when a woman is off as hell. You know when you should have been got rid of her ass. Broad was trying to argue with you, break up for 2 months and want to crawl back. Why? Because the new dick that she tried to have replaced you ain't taking her seriously, but your dumb ass is taking her seriously. You know when you should have been cut the bitch off. This sister right here is telling you the same thing. Cut them off, but don't wait years. If a woman don't know how to act after a couple months, cut her ass off. Goodbye. Ain't got time for the bullshit. The longer you hold up the bus in the station, you stopping the next bus from coming. All right? You have to understand your own value and your own worth. But that's why, once again, you got to put the Most High first. You got to utilize prudence and proper judgment and discernment. That's why I tell cats to put that weed down, man. Cats make bad decisions when they on that weed. And on all that strong drink. Making all these bad decisions, skeeting up in hoes without condoms on. Talking about she got a fat ass. Yeah, okay. Well, I hope that ass is worth 18 years of hell, nigga.
And I tell the sisters the same thing. If you're with a man you can't agree with, don't make his life miserable. Get with a man you can agree with. But we spend too much time living in hell with each other. We spend too much time tearing each other down, trying to...
Well, let me say this. She followed up by saying, if you with a man that you can't agree with, move on to a man that you can't agree with. No. The job of the woman is not to find a man who agrees with her. Her job is to be agreeable. Okay? So the sister went off on that second point. It's not the job of a woman to find a man who agrees with her. Just that sentiment in and of itself, just that thought process shows that the woman believes that a man is supposed to conform to her understanding. This is why I stated, even though you listen to a female like this, you also have to be very, very, very conscious of the fact that she is still a woman. Okay? So she's going to slip in little things because she's constantly battling against Satan in her own mind and her own spirit. I guarantee you that. Even with all the teachings that she's most likely regurgitating from her husband. She's battling every day. And if you ever read her book, in her intro, she tells you that she had to battle with her tempestuous spirit, man. That's why, once again, when you're dealing with the woman, you got to constantly be like a guide and like a psychiatrist to help them out, because they are constantly at war within themselves. And had Adam had that understanding, he wouldn't have felt like he did.
The other person do different or function different. If you want somebody to change, first change yourself. We set the example. We are the teacher. We are the mother. We set the example.
Well, look, let me say this. She sets the example. The woman sets the example for the children. Okay? She sets the example for the children. But I may follow up on this video with subsequent videos in regards to this sister and some of her teachings. But as you brothers could see at the bottom, a lot of her videos are there. Her book is definitely worth buying if you're one of those brothers who need some insight on the woman. That book is a classic, though. Many brothers know about that book, The Black Man's Guide to the Black Woman. It came out damn near 30 years ago, and it's still as relevant today as it was back then. So it's up to you, but it's not really that hard to figure out. The scriptures tell you everything that she stated, except it tells you even more, and from a more consistent perspective, because the Bible doesn't battle within itself like she's obviously battling within herself. All right. But anyway, brothers, stay vigilant.